My name's Kevin Graham and welcome to a Celtic State of Mind. Today's podcast is sponsored by Fansbet, the only bookmaker committed to giving back to causes that matter to us, the fans. Visit fansbet.com to get involved or fansbetgroup.com for more information on what they're all about. I'm joined by Alan Morrison from the ever fabulous Celtic by Numbers website. Celtic are going through, for me, two changes in style. There's a change in style on the park and there's a change in style off the park. There's some rumours that Lennon's changed the pre-match preparation and some of the players are resisting it a bit. And we've also got the change that we're seeing, the more direct in the final third compared to Brendan Rodgers. In the press conference after the Cluj game, Neil Lennon says that the team started like a Brendan Rodgers Celtic side. And I wondered what he meant by that. We started slow. So I sent you a text. So after we beat Motherwell 5-2. And what I says in the text was, is Neil Lennon's template based on Jürgen Klopp's Liverpool and Borussia Dortmund sides? Now, you did reply to me saying that's a bit of a leap, so I'll try and add a bit of context to that now. The reason that I compared it to Klopp's side was Klopp's teams are the only sides that I can think of who rely on individuality, both in attack and defence, who are quite happy to lose possession trying to go forward and sometimes get overrun in the middle of the park. But what's transformed Klopp's side has been the purchase of Virgil van Dijk, who can read breakaways, who's a fantastic one-on-one defender. You're more tactically minded than me. Who is Neil Lennon's style based on?
So I think it's fair to say that you could almost see him in the touchline simmering with frustration as the season went into its final throes, and the Celtic, he was trying to be true to his word of not changing how the team were set up under Rodgers, and a very possession-based, patient style, I guess you would say. I think he has changed it this season, but I wouldn't characterise it as being a massive leap in any particular direction. I think it's more of a subtle change in approach. I mean, Klopp's teams do take a long time to coach and to recruit the players to match the system. I still think Celtic are a team who, what they're trying to do is create overloads in wide areas and thereby create situations where passes can be made to midfielders running in or strikers. It's about movement, a lot of movement, and a lot of trying to target areas of the park where they can get a 2-on-1 situation or a 3-on-2, and that hasn't changed massively to my mind. If you look at the data, I suppose, to say how has it stylistically changed, it has actually, and you can see it this season. He's putting his mark on it. How does that come out? So under Deila, Celtic were averaging about 470 completed passes a game. Under Rodgers, that leapt up to 570. So 100 extra passes a game, and not only were they passing more, significantly more, but the accuracy went up as well. So 83% completion under Deila to about 88% under Rodgers. It doesn't sound like a lot, 5% in pass completion, but it is. Believe me, it's margins at this level. Now, under Lennon, we've sort of gone back down again to sort of halfway between Deila and Rodgers, down to about 540 passes a game, and we've dropped a couple of percent in accuracy. So we're kind of getting that's all indicative of slightly less, I suppose, patient build up and slightly more direct play, a slightly more willingness to give the ball away if there's a risk that might generate a reward. So I think that's an indication of a shift, but I wouldn't say it's a massive revolution in how Celtic play. I mean, for example, if you look at the way Cluj play, that would be a revolutionary change in how Celtic approach the game. Even the way that Stockholm play, those are very radically different styles of play. So I think Lennon has adjusted it. I think he's trying to get them to be a bit more aggressive in an attacking sense. And actually, if you look at the data, I actually think he's doing a good job at it. It's actually working so far. And the evidence I would put up for that is that the number of passes that actually take opponents out of the game has gone up from 9% of passes to 12%, which is quite a significant shift. But if we look at the shots data, because shots and getting shots away is clearly the most important thing. I think that there was a really good article today on the Modern Football site, which highlighted what are the key metrics that would predict a team would win, lose, or draw. And they looked at the SPFL matches from last season, and they ranked a number of different metrics for their predictability as to if one team had more of this particular metric than the other, how often did they win, how often did they lose, how often did they draw. And the most, I suppose, predictive, if you like, was actually shots on target. And a team that had the most shots on target would generally win 62% of the time or something like that. And then different metrics had different, I think expected goals was something like third. So anyway, so my question would be, thinking of it, I think of it in those terms. It's all very well having more passes, less passes. At the end of the day, are you creating more chances? But actually, are you creating better chances? And actually, I think we have to give Lennon some credit here, because as well as we're scoring more goals obviously than last season, but actually we're outperforming our expected goals, which caution on that one. So I think we're expected to score about 2.7 goals a game, and we're scoring 3. So you might expect to see that drop a little bit, but both those numbers are higher than under Rodgers. And if you look at the shots taken, there's actually quite a significant shift. So whereas last season, and in fact in all the season, both under Dyla and Rodgers, the fact that the style changed dramatically, the number of shots that Celtic had didn't change. It never changed. It was around about 16 shots a game from across Dyla and Rodgers' reign. Under Lennon this season, that's leapt up to 22 shots. Now, then we come to another point, which is, are we taking more long shots? Now, I'm going to do an article on this because I know it's something we've talked about in the past. And we've had a lot of success. I think we've already scored 11 goals from outside the box this season, which is pretty incredible. Now, I'm not advocating taking long shots because it remains, you can have vagaries of luck in the sense of some will go in, 3 or 4 might go in a row, and you might think, oh, this is good. But over the long term, it's not a great way to score goals. So, it's all about chance quality, and chance quality improves the closer you are to the goal and the closer you are to the middle of the goal. So saying we're taking more shots might indicate that, we're taking more shots, but are they actually better shots? And here again, if you look at the data, we're actually having more shots on target. So whereas under Rodgers last season it was about 6.5 shots on target a game, under Lennon it's just over 8 shots on target a game. We're having more shots off target, and we're having more shots blocked. So we're just having more shots. We're actually having more shots inside the box and more shots outside the box. So we're just shooting more. So that's a good thing, I think. So I think we've had a massive leap in number of shots from outside the box, and I think the number of goals that we've scored outside the box would probably encourage Lennon to continue with that approach. I'm going to say that will regress a bit over time, and it's not a great strategy. But what I can't criticise and won't and give him credit for is his team are getting more shots in total, from good positions and from bad positions.
That's a dramatic change from Rodgers' last 18 months, where we seemed reluctant to shoot from outside the box, and we struggled to get into decent areas at times, and it was extremely pedestrian. It's really interesting that I find the pass completion really interesting, that it's only dropped a couple of %, because to the naked eye it looks far more. It looks like the game breaks up far more, and it looks like we attempt less passes. The numbers that you've gave us there backs up that the fact is this season our best players have been Mikey Johnson, Ryan Christie, Odsonne Edouard and James Forrest, because these are the 4 guys who are getting shots off, are getting into exciting positions, who are enjoying this slight change of template that Lennon's given them. Fans looking for excuses for Brown maybe just getting older, or do you think that he is getting overrun in the middle of the park because of the slight tweaks that Lennon's made?
So what I wouldn't do is use the Cluj game as an exemplar of the season, because I think I'd be astonished if we play another team that plays the way that they play. It's a very specific style of play, and what both games were, where Cluj were successful against Celtic, was they managed to reduce the game to a bit of a mess, an unstructured mess, which is what they wanted. So whereas Celtic averaged, as I said, anywhere between 570 up to, in fact, against Dunfermline it was 740, obviously extra time, but let's take St Johnstone at home for example, 669 completed passes just from open play against St Johnstone. It was 285 against 231 in the away game against Cluj. They basically made Celtic play a different way, and that's where they were successful. They were slightly less successful obviously at Celtic Park, but they still, I think Celtic completed 360 odd open play passes, but again, compare that to the SPL games. They made Celtic play a very different game, and I think it was taxing for Brown, because the ball's pinging over his head here, there and everywhere, and the critical thing against Cluj was to win the second ball, because they didn't care whether they completed the pass or not. What they cared about was that they had one of their players on the spot whenever the ball ricocheted or went to whoever's head it came off, or wherever it deflected off. They wanted to have a man there for the next action, and that requires diligence from the defensive central midfielder to be covering these diagonals sailing over your head every 5 minutes. So I think it's no surprise, and with his mate as well being taken out of the game, McGregor, and stuck at left back, that he did look a bit lost, and yes, he did have a poor game, absolutely. But he is regressing, and he will continue to regress simply because of his age. There's no getting away from that. But I wouldn't use that as the exemplar of how his season will go necessarily. I think there's still a lot of miles left in him there. But I do wish we would get someone in there to help him and to take over from him on occasion.
As we've discussed before, the boy Turnbull was probably that guy to come in and give the box-to-box legs there.
I guess I would probably see Turnbull as more akin to a Ryan Christie type of box-to-box, all-action midfielder. He's going to give a goal threat. He's going to be trying long shots. Brown's role of sitting in front of the back four, dropping into the back four if necessary. I guess Bitton can play that role, and I would expect that especially in some of the home games against some of the lower teams in the league, that Brown would be getting rested, and Bitton would be allowed to play his game. He is a defensive midfielder. He's a different player to Brown, yes, but he knows that position. He can control that part of the pitch, and certainly against the lesser teams, he can actually dictate the play quite well. So I suspect that Bitton is our answer in the short term in terms of cover for Brown. I do fear that Turnbull was seen as someone that we're going to buy to replace Ncham if he leaves. I mean, there's been no further word on that, and he's a player that I think started the season well, and I hope we see a lot more out of. But if he does leave, then I think Turnbull was more a replacement for him.
We've mentioned McGregor at left back. We've mentioned the reason that we got beaten by Cluj is mainly down to poor tactics and game management against a very limited side whose tactics were very clear to anybody that watched them. They weren't going to change, they weren't a surprise. McGregor at left back against Cluj, again, naked eye, I don't think he had a bad game, but how poor a decision was it to play him at left back?
I mean, essentially Celtic went a goal down, and you can actually trace the goal down to, I'm being very simplistic here, but the writing was on the wall if you look at how the first 30 minutes unfolded. On the face of it, putting McGregor at left back isn't the disaster some people have painted it, in the sense that he has played there a few times, and he's actually played there to remarkable effect a few times. There was a game he played there, and again, this was against Hamilton, so at home, so you've got to bear that in mind, where he actually completely dominated the game from left back, completing 149 passes, can you believe? And actually, just completely, I think he completed 20 pack passes, which are forward passes that take opponents out. And then in another game, home game against Ross County, very similarly, he created a couple of chances, got into the box 7 times, completed over 100 passes from left back. So he clearly is capable of not just playing in that position but dominating. However, that was against probably the weakest teams that Celtic face at home, and this was obviously a very different type of opposition and a very different set of pressures. And obviously people remember the harrowing 1-0 defeat at Ibrox at end of last year, where he played left back. I don't think he particularly did anything better or worse than anyone else. It was just a poor performance from Rodgers and from the team on the day. But if you look at McGregor on the night against Cluj, that he was caught out on the wrong side of the attacker very early, and he almost gave away a penalty. In fact, I thought it looked a penalty to me when there was a back post ball came in and he was the wrong side, and I think the referee gave a goal kick, which seemed an odd decision because it suggests McGregor didn't touch the ball. If he didn't touch the ball, he seemed to take the man, so it looked a penalty. He'd actually given the ball away 5 times. He'd given 5 passes away by about the 15th minute. Got caught under another diagonal, and then on the 27th minute, they literally hit a blind ball into the box. I mean, if you look at the replay, long throw down the left, the guy who's running onto it, Omrani, he never once looks up. He doesn't look up at all. He simply just laces the ball into the middle. He has no idea who he's crossing to or who's where. He simply laces it into the ball, and it falls perfectly for Diak, who's moved in centrally. But he's pinned, as the defenders call it. They've pinned McGregor. He's got the jump on him. He's pinned him, and of course the header goes in off the post. And so it wasn't just that. There was a build up to that goal. There was a number of moments, 5 or 6 moments. A penalty that could have been conceded, a free kick that he had to give away, the number of passes he had to give away, being caught under diagonals, which is their bread and butter, that just must have given them hope, must have given them a clear sense of a weakness in the team. And the net result of that was that Celtic were a goal down and chasing the game at that point. In the end, you could argue it didn't matter, because I think, as we've said, the key final moment was that 3-2, and then not managing the game out from there. And actually, from that moment on, McGregor had a fantastic game at left back. Actually, he really settled down. He's an intelligent footballer. He led the team in ball recoveries. He won the ball 4 times back in his own defensive third, which is the most by anyone in the team, and he won 3 outright tackles in that rest of that first half, which is more than anyone else in the team. So he settled down and did a great job, all things considered. But the damage was done, the momentum was lost, and we were a goal down, and that was the cost of that decision.
So that's where Neil was probably coming from then, when he says that the decision to play McGregor at left back didn't affect the game that much. For me, taking Callum McGregor out the middle of the park, we lose a skill set that can't be replaced from within the squad in the middle of the park. Again, for me, you would have to question the Brown-Encham partnership in there. I can't really remember any game where it's been absolutely outstanding, but I'm sure somebody will point one out to me. So against AIK, Neil Lennon reverts. He brings in Christopher Jullien, who I've already spoke about. He loved the physical and the aerial battle with the Swedes, and he brought back in Bolingoli and moved Callum McGregor back into his midfield role. Bolingoli, for me, had a decent game, despite what I heard Radio Scotland saying about him. He just seems to be one of these players now where we're getting conditioned to see what he does wrong and not what he does well. What was your impression of Bolingoli?
So yeah, I think he's a fascinating player. It's definitely a mixed bag with him. We all want him to do well. We're all willing him to do well, unless you're on Radio Scotland, obviously. But and I'm being a bit cautious here, because I don't want to give absolute judgment on a player that has played the equivalent of about 7 matches, and I generally will look to try and get about 900 minutes is quite a good, but equivalent to say 10 games is usually quite a good indication of the data's then usually quite, you got a bit of consistency coming into the numbers at that point. And so I'm not there yet with Bolingoli, but I did have a wee look to see how he's doing, and I was actually comparing him to El Hamid because they're both fullbacks, and I was actually interested to see how they were stacking up. I mean, El Hamid's only played the equivalent of about nearly just under 4 games actually, so he's got even less data. And I suppose actually El Hamid's had quite a solid start, and he's actually both his defensive numbers and his attacking numbers are probably better than Bolingoli's. Bolingoli's got a very low so far, got a very low expected assist rate. He doesn't create a lot of chances. I think actually, I don't want to get into the specifics because I don't think I've got enough data, but what I would say just as general sort of broad brush observations is where I think Bolingoli is most effective is almost in the middle third. I don't think he's been tested a lot in the defensive third. I don't think we've seen him defending a lot. Celtic in the games that I've seen, even if we're playing a 4 at the back, in possession we've tended to tilt the team a little bit and push a bit like what we did with Tierney and push him up high. So he gets a lot of ball high and wide, and I think he's very effective at getting into good positions to receive the ball in that middle third. And he's also very effective at distributing from that left flank. And he's got a signature pass that he plays, which is this sort of inside pass. It played at quite some pace, a sort of diagonal inside low pass. And that's actually what the result of that is, which is either is the good positions he's taking up on the left, and also his ability to switch play inside again. Its speed is again, I come back to the packing I've talked about, which is the ability to play forward passes that take out opponents. His packing data is actually pretty decent. He's actually double the number of pack passes, and the impact of them of El Hamid, for example, and more akin to a midfielder actually. So I think that is a sweet spot for him. Where I think he's unproven is defensively. So and where I'm concerned I've not seen a huge, I guess, output so far is in the attacking third, because obviously Tierney was renowned for picking people out. He was very quite deliberate actually about he wouldn't just fling the ball into the box. He would try and find the cut back and find the pass. Bolingoli, number one, I've not seen him really have whether it's confidence or whether he's got the pace to take the last defender on and get to the byline. I've not seen that yet. And second of all, he does seem to take the easier option. I would say he continues to look like a nervous player. His shoulders visibly lifted when he got that assist to Forrest, and I think there is more there, and I think the criticism is undoubtedly going to get into him, and just playing for a club like Celtic has to be a big step up for him. So I still think there's a lot more to come. I still think there's a lot more data to collect and evidence to collect. I think there's some good bits there. There's some bits that are unproven, and there's some bits that can definitely improve. I suppose that would be my summary.
Again, it brings into question, I mentioned earlier on that Celtic are going through 2 changes in styles on the pitch and off the pitch, and Neil Lennon has been open in press conferences saying that Bolingoli's been a bit up and down. Against Cluj, he dropped him, which probably wouldn't have done the guy's confidence any good whatsoever.
I thought that was awful, yeah.
So, and you've got the moving of Callum McGregor back to left back, which maybe didn't do his confidence any good for the opening period of the game. The players there's a lot of the players in that dressing room have been there for 5 years. They've been there from the transition from Lennon the first time, through Ronnie Dyler, through Brendan Rodgers. Dyler and Rodgers are more development coaches for me, and manage teams or coach teams a different way. Neil Lennon is a different style of man management, maybe a bit more old school. How do you think the squad are reacting to that? Because we all know that Brendan was right into detail with the stats, and Neil says he doesn't usually look at the stats, but then he quoted a list of stats about the number of shots we had at goal against Cluj. I think the truth's somewhere in the middle. I don't think Lennon goes into as much detail as what Brendan and his coaching staff and his backroom team did, but I don't think he disregards the stats, the analytical stuff, the sports science stuff completely. Do you think the players might struggle to get Lennon's message because it's maybe getting delivered in a different style? Do you think that could be a problem at the start of this season?
So Kevin, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I tend to work on the basis, do I know that to be true? Yes or no? And if I don't know it to be true, then it's just opinion. And in my experience on the Celtic Timternet is that depending on who you see as being a particular problem, if you don't like Lowell, then you blame it on Lowell. If you don't like Lennon, then you blame it on Lennon. If you don't like Brown, then you blame it on Brown. And people will, cognitive dissonance will kick in, and people will adjust the narrative to fit the story they want to tell. So I don't know. Really. I don't have that information. All I can do is look at the performance data and see. I think you can see when a player's confident or not, or is perhaps not quite playing, mentally doesn't seem to be as switched on as they were, and I think I've detected that in a couple of players. So I think Bolingoli is one where his confidence doesn't seem to be high, and last week can't have done him any favours in terms of being, like you say, dropped, and McGregor shifted. I think McGregor doesn't look to me to be on his game, to me that is the most likely scenario. There is the transfer rumours about Leicester and Rodgers coming in for him, as that unsettled him. But he doesn't look to me to be, and I've not looked at this yet. But every game I watch him, I think, are your numbers up to last year? Last year was a high benchmark for him to reach, and I will look at that. So it's just a feeling at the moment. I'm not proving it. And then the other one, which I think we're going to come on to talk about, is actually Bain. Bain is the one player that I thought your confidence. You looked really confident last year, and now your confidence doesn't look high at all. And again, I don't know this to be true. I'm just surmising. But if I say I don't know this to be true, so. As you know, Kevin, I'm not one of these in the know sites. I don't claim to have great, rumours or insight, what have you. But I was told by somebody one thing that I from somebody that I would trust, is that Lennon perhaps didn't fancy Bain, was the information I received. And what I surmised from the performance data is that last year Bain was told, "You're the number one, you are the man." And I thought, and I wrote an article about him called "The Undisputed Number One," which showed his performance data just blew Gordon out of the water, and he absolutely deserved to be the number one goalkeeper. But this year, I think we've all seen, if Lennon has said to him, yep, you're still playing, but you're not going to play the cup games, and he's either felt or been told that I'm watching you, your position's up for grabs, sort of thing. Whatever it might be, he's not played with that confidence, and he might be one of those players who his confidence is fragile, and if he doesn't feel loved, he doesn't feel constantly validated and reinforced, a bit like Sinclair, frankly, then he's not going to perform to a high level. Is that Lennon's fault? Is Lennon not reading him as an individual, as an employee, as somebody to know how to manage well? I don't know, but I'm just sort of adding two and two here, and I might be getting the wrong answer. But I think he's one player who his confidence has fallen away, and therefore his performances have fallen away. Not only does he seem less confident, but he's obviously being asked to play in a slightly different way. His distribution was something which was obviously a key skill that he had, and a differentiator over the other goalkeepers. And in some of the games he's been struggling to hit 50% with his passing. That's just not the way he likes to play. So that's probably had an effect on his confidence as well. So is that, to come back to your original question, is that down to Lennon? I don't know. I've on that particular point, I say a little bit of insight that perhaps with Bain it might be, but is it affecting other players? I don't know. I think McGregor perhaps has been unsettled with the transfer, rumours. Other than that, I don't know if Lennon's style is affecting other players, frankly.
Well, with Scott Bain, it's unusual that he was on his way to Hibs when Neil Lennon was the manager there as a backup goalkeeper. I feared for Bain, or I kind of realised something was afoot when unprompted Neil Lennon mentioned Craig Gordon in a press conference. And again, even though some bloggers out there have actually says that we have got to access all areas past to Lennoxtown and Celtic Park, this is not true. We're not in the know at all. So when Neil Lennon mentioned Craig Gordon, I started thinking, I think Lennon's looking for an excuse to bring Gordon back in to the team. He sees Gordon as a better keeper for the way that he wants to play and a better shot stopper, which I think is debatable. But again, having a look at it, I can remember Craig Gordon saving us more points than what I can remember Scott Bain saving us. So when Bain got injured, I went, this is a perfect time for Neil Lennon to bring back in Craig Gordon. If Gordon doesn't do anything wrong, then he's back to being the number one goalkeeper. But lo and behold, the Great Wall returns and chucks a massive grenade into that thinking. What do you think about the return of Fraser Forster?
So I'm pleased. I think it's always good to have a very good player returning. Goalkeepers, he's obviously not played a lot of football in the last 2 years. I don't think for goalkeepers that's probably as much of an issue as some other positions, because it's you can only have one goalkeeper generally, so it's something they're used to as a professional. So I'm not too worried in that sense. And my memory of Forster is, and I think I'm probably, because I don't have data for this, so it's just opinion. I'm probably in a minority among Celtic fans. To my mind, he's the best goalkeeper I've seen. Better than Boric. But I know a lot of Celtic fans wouldn't agree with that. But I think there's probably an emotional thing there as well. So I always highly rated Forster. So to see a good player come back, or to see a good player in the squad, is a good thing. So I did a little piece just this week actually, just to look at the goalkeeping numbers. And I tried to keep it quite simple. I just wanted to do a quick one because it was the day that he was signing and I only had about half an hour to get this thing out. So anyway, I looked at just a couple of things, and shots saved is not a good metric in isolation. It's alright, like all metrics, it's alright in terms of weaving a narrative, but last season Bain was saving 85% of shots on target. This season it's collapsed down to 50. Now that doesn't mean to say that Bain's suddenly a bad goalkeeper. It could be to do with the fact that that people are, teams are creating better chances. So that's why you need to look at, again, our old friend expected goals. And if you look at expected goals of the shots that are on target versus the goals conceded, you can basically compare. So really, what you want is you want your team to be conceding. You want your goalkeeper to be saving more shots than he would be expected to save, basically. So essentially, if you're expected to concede one goal a game because of the chances that the opposition are having, but actually you're only conceding 0.8 of a goal a game, then your goalkeeper's potentially adding 0.2 of a goal a game value by keeping out shots that you would otherwise not be expected to save. Hopefully that's simple enough. And as I showed last season, Bain was actually expected to concede about 0.4 of a goal a game. Sorry, was expected to concede about 0.6 of a goal a game, and he was only conceding 0.4 of a goal a game. That's great. Gordon, on the other hand, was expected to concede 0.7 of a goal a game, and he actually was conceding 0.8 of a goal a game, so 0.1 of a goal more than he would be expected to concede. And actually this season, Gordon is doing exactly the same thing, but Bain's numbers have now flipped. So Bain actually would be expected to concede about a goal a game, and he's conceding about 1.3 goals a game. So that's probably more of a a more realistic view of are they conceding the goals they should. And we've not played many games. This is a very small sample of data. There could be some absolute screamers in there that were completely unexpected, that are distorting numbers, and etc. etc. But undoubtedly, that's quite a stark shift, especially for Bain there. So, all that being said, then, what my message from that is two things. One, on Gordon, I'm not seeing Gordon improve, and as the conversation with Brown, he's 36. I know that's not particularly old for a goalkeeper, but I'm not seeing his numbers get better. And on Bain, I'm seeing on a human level, a collapse in confidence, and on a data level, a complete turnaround in the goals that he's conceding versus what he was last season. So that all says to me that Forster's there to be a realistic challenge to that number 1 jersey.
He had his best spell of his career under Neil Lennon. Then he enjoyed 2 great years at Southampton before injury sort of robbed him of his confidence and a bit of mobility from what I've read today. So it'll be interesting, as you say, a goalkeeper can go years without playing because you can only play one goalkeeper. So it'll be interesting to see where his fitness level's at, and it'll be interesting to see if he is going to be the number 1 goalkeeper. Craig Gordon also had another bad injury there, and his numbers are not improving. And as you say, he's 36, which that is not old in goalkeeping years. But the amount of serious injuries that he's had, I think his capability in the goals could be waning. And there's a reason that Fraser is back at the club. One, it's a great opportunity to bring a really decent goalkeeper back. It's a no-brainer. And 2, to improve that position in the first team. On paper, Big Fraser is the best goalkeeper that we've got now. Alan, it's always a pleasure talking to you, and thanks for being on A Celtic State of Mind.
Thanks as always, Kevin. Take care.
A Celtic State of Mind can be found at axom.net. We're sponsored by Fansbet, the betting company by fans for fans.